This is going to work, it has to work.
Seems like you're a magician with a lot of shortcuts.
Yeah, I got the appointment and I rented a suite in a hotel room in New York. The buyers knocked on the door and my friend went to get the door. I said, wait. And they said, okay, where are the clothes? They were so shocked.
You said that you changed your ADD or
Sure.
ADHD to a superpower.
Yeah, it's really intense.
When were you the most disappointed in yourself?
Making a small mistake or a big mistake, they both hurt the same way.
If we scan your life, Mike, like, was there any period that it was difficult on Mike? So this always, I start the interview with an intro, but the funny thing is the intro is literally what happened in the interview after. So I just want to say that this is an interview I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I'm so disappointed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm happy. Finally, we made it happen. We met a long time ago in 2001.
Yes, that's right.
And I know you've always been reluctant, but I'm privileged and happy that you were willing to share your life story, a bit of it,
Yeah.
with me and with everybody who's going to watch. So I hope you felt good about that.
Yeah, I did.
Good.
Yeah.
So watch it. I always tell you guys, if you're not subscribed, please do support the channel, and we try to bring you the best of the best in terms of guests. And for all of you who know Mike, I hope you'll see new dimensions to him. And if you don't, find him on social, find his stores, find his website, learn more about somebody who's worked in a very unconventional way to make something great. Enjoy the conversation. I always clap. I just got used to it now. Okay. You know, the first time we met is the first time I wanted to do the interview. I probably wanted to do it before, but when we met at that diner restaurant in Beverly Hills, I think hotel
Yeah, the
is
Polo
called.
Lounge.
Yeah, that's 2021.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So we're here 3 years later.
Amazing.
It's good. First question, how are you really doing?
Today I'm doing great. Today I'm doing great. I think I look at how I'm doing on a daily basis and I try to kind of win the day.
Win the day, what does that mean?
Win the day is kind of setting yourself up to have a great day and feel great. It could be sleeping correctly, exercising in the morning, journaling, getting all your thoughts straightened out. I think every little thing you do adds up to how you're feeling entirely. So if you win the morning, then it kind of puts you into the afternoon in a great mood, and then gives you a chance to win the afternoon. And if you win that, you have a better chance of winning the end of the day. And then if you win that day, you have to win the next one. And if you win 7 of them, you get the week. Yeah.
You journal what time?
Usually it's about 6 a.m. with my coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And journaling is what, a gratitude journal or a manifestation or affirmation?
I think for me, it's in the morning, I think really clearly. And, it's the time where you've not been on your phone. So your brain hasn't really absorbed so much. So it's really pure. And I just kind of audit, I'm really conscious of the main things hovering in my head. So it's an important time for me.
Okay. This question is always an interesting question.
Yeah.
Who are you, Mike?
Yeah. Me, I'm a father, husband, son, friend, and another human.
You didn't say designer or creative director or...
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel, you know, what you do is, you know, defining who you are always. I don't look at myself that way too much either.
Yeah. Okay. Father came number one.
Yeah.
You like it?
I think it's a great purpose.
It can be.
Yeah.
Not for everybody. Some people are really bad fathers or
Yeah.
mothers, and some are great.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those things where, you know, once you're in it, you feel something click, or you know, you hope to. And for me, it was just kind of an automatic thing where I felt kind of complete in my purpose in the world when I started having kids. Yeah.
Okay. And you had kids at what age?
Gosh, I was 35, 34 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Full circle kind of moment?
In some ways, I suppose, yeah.
Okay, so we're not in a white studio today.
Yeah.
But if you can imagine a white canvas, plain white, and I asked you, Mike, to draw or paint your current mental state, what would you paint?
I think right now I would probably paint a circle, because I feel kind of really complete in a way. I feel like I feel very centered, you know? I think that's kind of where we strive to be, or where I strive to be, is kind of centered. So I guess kind of circle, and I'm in the middle of it.
Which color is the circle?
Black.
Childhood in 3 words.
Yeah. In 3 words.
Yeah.
Daydream counts as 1 word, I think.
Yes.
Fun. And family.
You have a good family?
I believe I have a great one, yeah.
Okay. And you said daydream.
Yeah.
You were an introvert or an extroverted kid?
I was an introvert, but, you know, in my world, I was an extrovert. You know, I think I was one of those kids that can be alone and is perfectly comfortable creating a world and kind of, you know, playing with imaginary toys and friends and creating scenarios and stories, and I could do that, you know, for hours. Ironically, I still have to do that for a living now too. Yeah.
And how was your relationship with your parents growing up?
Well, I'm one of 3 brothers, and I'm in the middle.
Okay.
So, which is kind of an interesting place for a child to be, because, you know, when the first kid, you know, gets a lot of attention in the beginning because it's parents' first time being a parent, they're figuring it out. You know, second one has his moment, but then the youngest one comes and he's the baby. So, a lot of the times I think my role was to kind of keep even water, you know, because you just want to kind of create like stability. And I guess in a lot of ways that kind of shaped me, kind of watching my parents work with my older brother and my younger brother. So I figured my role was kind of to be a bit quiet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So was it like a responsibility that you put upon yourself?
I don't know if it's something I like did it for a reason, but I felt like it was a role that I kind of assumed. And then I think it became a role that was expected of me in a way, where, you know, you're the peacekeeper, or you're the one that kind of people go to calm things down. And I identified with that, and that kind of became, you know, bits of my identity. Like, you start, as a kid, right, you start finding those little things that feel natural to you, and those start making up who you are as an adult. And I think that one was one of them for me.
When you say that you wanted to bring the peace, or just balance make it an equilibrium at home? Is it because your other brothers were rebellious or naughty or difficult, or was it fights and arguments in the house and you're the mediator?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of all of it. Yeah, you know, I mean, I was like rebellious and troublesome, but I was just really good at making it not noticeable, you know, so I got caught less maybe. I think we were all pretty much rebellious, but I got caught less. So, yeah.
Okay. How were you as a teenager?
I think as a teenager, I still kind of had a culmination of a lot of that, like dreaming mentality. And I was a bit in the clouds in a way, where the people I hung out with were also kind of either creative or a little bit not average in a way. You know, some were a little crazier, some were more creative, some were artists, some were musicians. I don't know. I think there's something that has always like seemed interesting to me is that people who stick out in a way, and that's kind of who I surrounded myself with. Yeah.
Well, I read, Mike, that you studied history and law.
Yeah.
How did you end up in fashion?
Yeah, that's a great question because they're so like far apart. Well, in many ways, I was trying to, you know, figure myself out as I'm growing as a young adult, and going to law school was kind of more of a check in the box in a way, where you know there's certain things kind of you think are safe, or you feel like you know something you want to give your parents in a way, you know, like live up to something that they've expected. Or you know, just kind of like showing gratitude for what they've done for you, you know. And it was really ironic because the law school part of it kind of came back full circle to really help me as I became a creative. But I stumbled upon being a fashion designer, just kind of being in Los Angeles and it being a city of entertainment and music and musicians. And a friend of mine invited me to work on some creative projects with him, making like stage clothing for some musicians and some artists. And I did it kind of on the side, but I really enjoyed that part of it. And it was something that kind of came natural to me, and it just clicked. Whereas in, you know, law school felt like it wasn't the right fit, or it didn't come as easy. It was like a bit of a struggle. You know, the ironic thing about that is I guess I kind of owe that foundation, that educational foundation. It's really kind of complemented where I am in my career as well. There's a lot of fashion designers who are super creative and amazing and have these like great skills, but there's a foundational business acumen that is not there. And unless they have like a counterpart, you know, like Tom Ford had Domenica Del Sole, and Marc Jacobs had Duffy, and all these guys kind of had a counterpart with them. And me, I never really found that counterpart, but the education and understanding, you know, the fundamentals of contracts and business, it kind of gave me a bit of an inside track on decisions I was making as a creative when I really, you know, started my own company. So, you know, looking back, it made a lot of sense, but like most things, like at the moment they don't feel right, but just kind of having trust and going through, there was light at the end of that tunnel.
So, you know, when we think, Mike, Arabs, Iranians, Asian, we grow up with a lot of the definitions of success of what our parents deemed successful in their time. So engineer, doctor, lawyer, you make them happy.
Sure.
So you get, even if they don't, like my parents never said it, but there was that maybe expectation or peer pressure from the society, or we hope you become a doctor or engineer. So I became an engineer.
Yes.
And obviously everything I do now has nothing to do with engineering.
Right.
But I do think my engineering brain has played a huge role in me as an interviewer or entrepreneur, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So I can see what you're saying. You going through a history or a law degree and whatever collection of cocktail you put together made you a different breed of a fashion designer. It's not like you went to fashion school for 6 years, then you worked for a few brands.
Yeah.
So maybe that weird mix is what did it all.
I think so. I mean, I always, you know, I always encourage people, like I always say, like, you know, when they ask me like what should they be doing, and I always say, just don't do nothing, you know. Maybe the foundational education of being an engineer, you know, didn't have direct effect on you, but maybe the discipline of staying up, of studying, of committing to yourself that was to something that was uncomfortable, you know, created this tolerance and this perseverance within you. So I think that it may not be directly connected, but there is growth happening with action, you know.
Yeah, I believe that. And there's a nice story, I think our audience should hear it, of you starting by taking out a number of years ago $30,000 from your saving with your wife, Shireen, and that was the first capital investment, 30K.
Yeah, 30K.
So what's the story there?
Yeah, I think there was a period of time where I was, you know, designing a lot of projects for other companies and other people, and they were not even all fashion projects, they were just creative projects. And I did so much of it that I found myself like in the room with people making decisions for their own company. And I got to observe and I got to contribute. And I built up so much knowledge and experience by being around other people and working on so many different things. And I think there was a time where I made a decision that it was probably my time to kind of do something really significant. And it wasn't like a decision I had had with like previous brands that I made. Because like as a designer, you try a bunch of things, right? You have a smaller brand, you try a few things that don't work out. You know, I don't really know a lot of people, it's like their first shot that made it for them. But, you know, with this decision, I really kind of committed myself in a different way where I was like, this is going to work, it has to work. So yeah, we made our first collection with $30,000. It was probably even a little less. I think it turned into 30,000 once we had to like actually produce an order. But with like no real resources, it's like kind of a well-known story that it was like this basement in Hollywood under a Thai restaurant, and that's like kind of this like story that kind of lives. And in so many ways, working down there, I had been so confident that I'd one day even tell the story of starting in a basement. You know, I would be working there. I'm like, I'm going to tell people I started here once. You know, and it was this positive kind of mindset where the vision was concrete that really made a difference with what I was doing.
Do you believe on a tangent here? You know, we talk a lot about manifestation and law of attraction. It's very trendy TikTok jargon. Or jargon. Okay, now I've been playing a lot with this topic, and I do believe there's a lot of truth to it. I do think it's overused, but my take on it, and I want you to either debate it or agree.
Sure.
Is I feel if you just sit on your corner of your bed and act like, you know, things should happen, most probably it won't. But if it does come from an internal conviction, like you actually believe, like you just said, that I thought I would make it. And I thought one day I will tell the story of the basement.
Yeah.
So it came from an internal place.
Sure.
So, and I believe that's where things start to fold up or fall into place towards the vision. But if you say, I will be a hit, I'll be the best singer.
Sure.
But internally, when nobody's around you, you truly don't believe that internally.
Yeah.
I don't think law of attraction applies to that person. Because you always think, what about the millions of people who are trying the law of attraction? It's not working.
Sure.
What's the difference?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. When you're trying something, your dream is really big, or it's unconventional, or it's illogical, or it's uncommon, it's really tempting to kind of doubt. But the truth is, those things are really hard to do. They're really difficult. And if you start kind of putting the seed in your head that actually it's not going to be possible, you're not going to have the tolerance and the perseverance to kind of do what you have to do to get there. If you let a small crack on your glass happen, it starts spreading, and it kind of takes you off your path, makes you doubtful, ruins your foundation, ruins your ability to inspire people around you to believe also. You know, when you start a company, it's your brain and your thinking. But to really build a company, you have to have people. And that's one of the most important things. But they have to believe like you believe. So, you know, if you tell them that there's a fountain of water at the end of that desert, you really have to convince them that you believe there's a fountain of water at the end of that desert. And it becomes the driving light is your ability to see that vision really clearly and don't flinch. Yeah.
What about the story of, this was smart when I saw this video from you, Mike. You said something along the lines that you would tell people to tell buyers about your brand, but not say anything else.
Yeah.
Just like talk about, like chit chat. And that the fact that by the time you would make the call or something, they already have heard of you.
Yeah.
But I said it very sure, so I'd rather hear it from you. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think
it's true what I heard, like what I listened to.
Yeah, that's a completely true story. And
Okay.
there's like so many instances like that where I would kind of create the attraction itself, you know, in a way where in that scenario, you know, I've told the story where people would kind of talk to buyers and tell them about the brand way before I even, you know, got to them. So when I finally got in contact with the buyer, it would seem like the whole city was kind of talking, you know. And I really love that story. And there's one that I haven't told, which is kind of along the same lines, where I remember there was a huge account that I was trying to get to, and they had given me a meeting, and I really wanted to be in this department store. It was so prestigious. And I got the appointment, and I rented a suite in a hotel room in New York. And the buyers knocked on the door, and my friend went to get the door. I said, wait. And he says, they're here. I said, let them wait a little bit. And then they waited. We opened the door, they came in, and I had put the clothing behind the doors of the bedroom. And they said, okay, where are the clothes? And I said, well, have a seat. I want to first get to know who I'm doing business with first. And they were so shocked. And it was like, I wouldn't say they were insulted. I think they were more in shock because here you have the buyers of one of the most important department stores in the country. And they're used to kind of the designer being so freaked out. And they sat on the couch and I talked to them and we chatted a bit. And I said, okay, well, first of all, I have to tell you that I can't sell to you right now because I'm completely committed, but I can show you the collection. So I think before even opening the door and showing the clothes, you know, the mindset was already that I want this. And they actually ended up placing the order, and it was an amazing relationship with them, and it actually helped me quite a bit. But I think that came from years before. You know, as a fashion designer, you don't have a lot of avenues to sell clothing back then. Like websites weren't so prevalent for independence. So you would show up at trade shows and you would rent a small 10 by 10 booth, and buyers would walk by and you'd kind of stand in front of your booth and hoping they would come look at a piece of clothing, and they'd rifle through it really fast. And you'd be like, oh man, I worked so hard on that. Why are you going through so fast the hangers? And they said, okay, not bad. And they'd keep going, you know? But you'd have to imagine that 6 days in a row, 5 days in a row, you know, 100 times. And it kind of built this thing in me where I didn't want to be the one chasing anymore, you know? And I wanted to have, I wanted to control that part of it. But it went through so many disappointments of people kind of turning you down that kind of taught me that over time. Where when I started Amiri, it wasn't about opening so many stores and being everywhere. It was kind of creating that wanting, in a way, that magic that people don't get to see. You know?
But since, because I was introduced to your brand a long time ago in a department store in Paris. This is a long time, I mean really long, even before we met by years.
Right.
And because I love clothes, I go to the store and then one of these people who help you, he's like, I have something for you. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this jeans you're gonna like. And I got the jeans, and at that time it was more expensive than all the other jeans in the store. And I'm like, who pays for a jeans this much? He's like, Anas, go wear it and come back.
Right.
And for me, it was above the average of the usual designer jeans.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure. I go try it, and it's for the first time I try something stylish and comfortable. Usually if it's stylish, it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I can wear this the whole day without feeling like, oh, I can't wait to go home and just change.
Sure.
And then I paid that amount, which was not heard of at that time.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting how he brought in something, there was no logos, nothing.
Yeah.
So my question is, you said you wanted to preserve some of that magic and some of that difference. How do you preserve it now when you're literally actually everywhere? Your stores are in the biggest cities.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that? It's more challenging now.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think scale, is something really interesting when you put it towards the context of luxury, which is inherently scarce, But when you think of Amiri in the context of luxury brands at the moment, we're still quite tiny and small, maybe one of the smallest and youngest luxury brands in the world. So from a context of, wow, this is really big, it's actually really not in reality. Maybe you're able to find product a little bit more than you're used to, but there's not 6 stores in one city. There's even, if you think about it in the world, there's only 23 Amiri stores. But if you think about like some of the French luxury houses, you have over 200. So we have 90% more to go before it's kind of everywhere.
But do you want to go there?
I think what I want and what the brand is, evolves over time, and it's really tricky because at one point I was happy just seeing my clothes on a hanger at somebody's store. And once you kind of get there, you're like, oh, I'd like to see it in a few more stores. And then you say, oh, I'd like to do a runway show one day. And you do a small runway show. Then you say, I'd like to do, a runway show with 800 people in Paris in the middle of this park one day. And you do 3 of those, and then you start kind of dreaming bigger. And it's kind of like this saying where they say that the top of like one mountain is the bottom of the next one. And it's tough for me to say what the end of the story is and where this kind of goes. All I know is that I want to push it forward. I'm excited to do that. I'm still really passionate about it. And I have what I call garage mentality, where like the best music a musician can make is in the garage. They don't have anything to lose. They're working with very little. They're scrappy and they're fast and they're hungry. And I have still that feeling in my heart of garage mentality. The smallest of the luxury brands. I have 1/100th of the resources, the advertising dollars, the marketing dollars, the ability to buy celebrities, the ability to open stores rapidly. Yet we're still growing and we're kind of setting a mark that hasn't really been set commonly. To me, that's exciting, and I find joy in doing that.
But why? Like, why are you doing all of this? I know you made good money.
Yeah.
You could take a back seat maybe, or hire somebody to be
Yeah.
the creative director. So I'm always curious on what's the purpose? Why do people do certain things, and why are they obsessed about it?
Yeah. I think it's different for different people. I knew early on for me it wasn't a money thing. You know, money is convenience, it's comfort, which is important. But for me, I think it was camaraderie, community. You know, I love working with people who inspire me and feel inspired by me. I feel like I'm doing something that is adding to their life in a way, which is something much more important than adding to a bank account. You're adding positive change to people. And then I also feel that people are inspired by what I do. And the people that follow me are not all fashion people. You know, they're people who dream of doing something big, and it's helpful for them to see someone do that, and it gives them hope that they can do it as well.
And okay, I don't want to sit on modesty. I do think there are some impressive numbers that are exciting, I guess, to what will come. I know, or I read that you took from the $30,000 investment, you reached all the way to $300 million in revenue, if plus minus. How do you grow from this to this in a short period of time, comparatively, where brands have been taking much longer to reach this?
Yeah.
You mentioned shortcut maybe 20 minutes ago. There was one shortcut, but it seems like you're a magician with a lot of shortcuts.
Yeah.
So how do you summarize that? How do you achieve this much in this short time?
I think a lot of it is timing. I think there's timing involved there. I think there's a lot of luck involved. I think those have to be there. But then there's also tons and tons and tons of work that a lot of people would not be willing to do. It's really intense. It's unforgiving. It's relentless. You know, you have to work like it's day one every single day. You know, because if you're not growing, you're dying in what we do. So I think that's really one big reason. Another one is people. I've been fortunate enough to kind of find people who complement my skill set, who understand things I may not get. And some was attracted, some was luck, some was being in the right place. And those kind of people have really helped me jump further. And I think the other is just kind of watching what other people have done, mistakes and also wins, and trying to take the shortcut in that perspective where you may not have to fall on your face to figure something out. You may just have to have a conversation with someone who's fallen on their face and be open to that. I think and it's something I say to a lot of like young designers, and something I look for in young designers that I talk to is you have to have confidence to do something unusual and great. You have to have confidence. You have to have a ridiculous amount of confidence, like even illogical, you know? But there's a difference between that and having arrogance, right? Because arrogance tells you know everything, you know? So it's kind of a mix of being super confident, but having the humility to understand you don't know what you don't know. So your ears are really open. So I talk to as many, you can call them mentors, but some of them are much younger than me too, you know? And not all of them are in fashion. But I never miss the opportunity to have like a conversation where I can learn something, where I won't make a mistake that someone else has made. So I think that's really been a big part of it.
Recently, I've been, facing challenges with. I'm sure you do too. Any entrepreneur does. People in general. I realized, and I've been talking this. I think my team hates it by now. And I don't mean to sound offensive because I'll also call myself stupid in certain things. I call it the SNS. Stupid and stubborn.
Yeah.
Worst combo in any human being. Because we're all stupid in certain things. But if you're stupid and stubborn, as if you know it all, that's where you screw up. And that's where you fall on your face, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But if you're, say, okay, I'm stupid in accounting.
Yeah.
Or ignorant, if you want a lighter word.
Sure.
So I'm going to get a good accountant. And I learn from him.
Sure.
Oh, I don't know how to do patterns.
Yeah.
Let me get a really good pattern maker.
Sure.
That's, I think, one of the best advantages for any employee, team member, friend. It's this resourcefulness and this level of, I think you mentioned, this humbleness to learn.
Sure.
You can learn something from the cashier, you can learn something from your engineer, you can learn from anybody. So this is something I try to find. It's okay not to know something. It's okay to be stupid about something. It's not okay to think you know it all and you don't want to seek help.
Yeah.
Say, I don't know. Anas, I don't know. But you know what? Give me 30 minutes. I'm going on ChatGPT. I'm going, whatever.
Yeah.
But learn. Because
Yeah.
again, if I'm going to talk about you, you should be a lawyer.
Sure.
But you're a great fashion designer. I should be just a mechanical engineer.
Right.
But I have a hair salon and I have an interview shot. And I think that's important. Like you just stay, even with my therapist, I always bring a pen and paper because he's so smart.
Sure.
And I just want to learn.
Yeah.
And he'll analyze and dissect things. I'm like, okay, that's cool, you know? And I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
The student.
Yeah. It requires also self-awareness. You know, your ability to kind of step away from yourself and say, am I good at X, Y, and Z? Am I considering X, Y, and Z? You know, my favorite thing with people is not when they tell me like they've done great things. I like when people share, you know, I messed up on this. And I actually look for that in people that I hire. You know, I ask them, you know, kind of what was one of your biggest failures and those kind of things, because those are the people that will keep growing. You know, the ones that have nothing, no criticisms for themselves, I find tough to be around, you know, because they're not going to grow at the same speed. But the ones that kind of look back and say, what could I have done a little bit differently? What could I have done better? You know, it's such a necessary trait.
Are you good with hiring and firing? Have you mastered it?
We have now over 300 people working for Amiri at various capacities. Sometimes I hire by instinct, you know, and I have a gut feeling, and sometimes that's right, and sometimes it's wrong. Usually, I learn something pretty fast. But I think the key is when something's not working and it feels wrong, to kind of act on it sooner than later. Because you need to let those things kind of sit. And this is lessons you have to learn as an entrepreneur as well, because, you know, when you start a company, you really have a family, and there's, you know, 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, 30 people, but you want to create that, you know, family atmosphere. And you don't want to lose people. But at some point you have to understand like what's good for the organization. And it's less about, you know, I want to protect this person. It's more about I have a duty to kind of protect the entire organization. And so if you hire wrong, it's best to make fast decisions. And then if you hire correctly, one of my favorite things in the world is seeing something in people that they don't see in themselves. It's one of the most gratifying parts of what I do is watching someone grow and saying, oh, this person is doing this now, but I know he could do this. And then you challenge them a little bit and they achieve it. And they get confident, and then you put them in a different position and they do more. And they're, oh, I never thought I can do this. And then, okay, then try this, you know? I find that people who are successful, a good number of them, it's the feeling of success that they love, but it doesn't have to be their own success. It's watching someone kind of on the journey that seems exciting to them, that reminds them of themselves, so you get to live that win again, you know? That's why I always say, like, sometimes you have to just talk to people who've been through it. And if they really see this genuine want and this genuine curiosity and humility, they'll want to share it with you because they're addicted to the win. It doesn't have to be their win, you know?
I love that. Do you agree with the saying, fire quick, hire slow?
Yeah, I think it's along the lines of hire fast, fire fast as well. That one just rhymes.
Yeah, it does. You said that you changed your ADD to a superpower.
Yeah.
How? Because a lot of people watching have it, or
Sure.
ADHD, one of them. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing when I read that.
Yeah. I think my brain is always kind of fired off really fast and really randomly, and then mix that with like a heightened sense of creativity. You know, you're constantly kind of creating things that don't really exist, or seeing things other people don't see, and then moving from one thing to another really, really quickly. And yeah, for a while it seemed like something that you kind of need to get medicated for, or therapy, or special conditions. But for me, I started empowering myself as having that as my gift. Because I thought everybody thought like me. Like, oh, you can't see that could be this. Like when I look at something, I could already see what's there and it's not there. But I could see the pieces of it to make it. And once I started telling myself, oh, wow, you're brilliant at this, instead of you're somehow broken or you're not working correctly. And I started saying, oh, you're quite brilliant at X, Y, and Z. I grabbed control of that, and I was able to kind of utilize that much, much better and leverage it into designing, 12 collections, kids, design stores, design, music for shows, design runway, design, I leveraged it to create things faster in my brain, and just accept that that's kind of how I work. The tricky part is compartmentalizing those things, so you're not a complete mess. And I think that's where, having great people, who can kind of put you in a lane and say, we kind of need you doing this right now, and then this is next, and this is next. Yeah.
Can I have, Celine, the red card? These are more like faster questions, but they're cool ones. Okay. Okay, so this one, they're cool. Let's see, I'll put this on the side. Okay. So, mister, do you live to work or work to live?
I think I work to live.
Work to live.
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. Well, I find purpose in working. So if you're not doing anything, like, if you're not serving a purpose, are you really living?
You know the difference, though. If you live to work, that means your work is everything. If you work to live, you work just to make a living.
Yeah. I guess you could take it. I guess what you define as living, really, right?
True.
If you work to make a living,
Yeah.
it's one thing. But I think for me, like, I consider work, I consider fatherhood, I consider all that work, and I consider that purpose, and that's how you create a real life.
When were you the most disappointed in yourself?
I think that's a great question, because that requires a great sense of self-awareness. Yeah. I couldn't tell you when the most disappointed in myself was, but I do know on a weekly basis, I find myself disappointed in myself for various things I probably could have done better. And I'm not easy on myself with mistakes. I'm really hard on myself with mistakes. And I sometimes I can't discern making a small mistake or a big mistake. They both hurt the same way, but I guess that's sometimes a good quality as well.
Yeah, I can relate. Do you ever get imposter syndrome?
Yeah, of course, every single day. How could you not? How could you not? 12 years ago, I was sitting in a basement telling people how I'm going to own a luxury house one day. And then 12 years later, I have 300 employees, a luxury house, Paris fashion shows. You can't look at it all the time and say, yeah, like this is exactly how it's supposed to be, right? Sometimes you look at it and you step back, you're like, wow, is this real? Like, am I real? Am I this person that's doing those things? And it's okay to do that. It just can't be your narrative for yourself. You have to snap back into yes, you are, and yes, you did. You know, because that negative narrative becomes a habit and puts everything else kind of at risk. So it's okay to step back sometimes and feel like you're not the person people think you are. But it's also important to tell yourself you absolutely are.
When were you the most proud of yourself?
I think it's, you know, watching my children do something unexpected or talented. And it really could be something just based on spending time with them. You know, my son playing basketball better because I've spent more time at home playing basketball with him, and then watching his confidence grow. I think those things make you proud. You know, when you're younger, the only people you want to make proud are your parents, right? And then when you get older, the most important people you want to make proud are your children, at least for me. And I think that's the most rewarding.
Are they proud of you?
They're very proud of me. Yeah,
Good.
They're very proud of me. It's amazing because I've, you know, kind of, in order to do what I do, you kind of have to stay young and you have to stay grounded. You got to stay kind of connected to kind of what's going on within culture. And it's great because they're coming to an age now where we can share certain experiences, you know, both with a young mind. And I don't think like our generations have always kind of had that with our parents, you know, where you can kind of relate. And for me, it's really rewarding because in a way I still feel like I'm growing up and we're kind of going through things together. So it's really quite cool.
I like that. What's something you do differently than anyone else you know?
I think I can create in a way, not even in a way, I think I can create at a tempo that not many people can, you know, and do it without getting too tired, you know. It's the life of a fashion designer is really hard. And when it's a big company and a big brand, it's really, really hard. It's even harder when you're also the CEO. It's even harder if you're an involved father. It's even harder when you're a husband, because all the flowers need water, you know? And I guess to make my answer longer, I guess it's finding a bit of balance to do all of them. And having the, I guess, stamina to continuously do it. Yeah.
My uncle, who was on the show, taught me something nice. I asked him about work-life balance. He said, change that to work-life harmony.
Yeah.
And that switched my mind to it, because we always feel guilty about the idea of balancing, you know, your personal life, family life, work life. And when he said harmony, I like that word more. You know, how is everything harmonizing?
Yeah.
My kids still feel present, I'm with them. But my family, I just called my dad, he's happy I called him.
Yeah.
My employees are not waiting too long in their meetings. So sometimes some will take more than the other, but there is harmony.
Yeah, I think when you talk about work-life balance and the word balance, you're looking at separate things.
You cut it.
They're all cut.
Yeah.
And when you think about harmony, it's can they all play together and interplay in a nice way?
Orchestra.
Like an orchestra.
Even like now, we go for dinner and you say, guys, I need 30 minutes on the side. You go get a very important phone call. Come back. You shouldn't feel guilty.
No.
Because we get it.
Yeah,
Of course, Mike, go. You go, you come back, you enjoy a meal, and you're present there.
Yeah.
And I like that without the shaming and the guilt tripping or always feeling, oh man, I should have just stayed at the dinner for 2 hours straight. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
You go, you finish quickly, and you come back.
It's because you're self-aware.
Yeah. Okay. What does the voice in your head sound like?
Not as raspy as my voice is usually. It's a lot smoother. It's funny, there's a voice in my head, but I'm really audible with it. In the morning, my wife always asks me who I'm talking to. And it's really myself, because I do a lot of just kind of self-talk. And I talk myself through certain things in a dialogue. And I think anybody who saw me, like, you know, doing this would think I'm crazy. But it's really a great conversation I have with myself. And I'm able to, you know, work through kind of issues and problems, and just by dialoguing thing. And I'm able to manifest things by kind of saying them to myself as well. So I think the power of your own voice is really important, and understanding and listening to that.
Is it a positive voice, negative voice?
It's predominantly positive.
Okay.
I think it's predominantly positive. If you think about, you know, human beings and our brain, we're wired to be problem solvers, right? It's like your brain's gonna go. It's like your heart's gonna go when you're sleeping. Your brain's gonna go when you're sleeping. And it's gonna look for problems. And sometimes you just kind of have to be aware that, is this creating something that doesn't really exist? You know, am I trying to solve something that's not there? And just kind of put yourself out of it. You know, I read a book, it was like changed my life. It was Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. And really one of the books that's really changed me. But it also, you know, it talks about, you know, controlling your subconscious thought, and having kind of like an awareness to, you know, what you think. You know, it's so important. Sometimes when I talk to people and they have big problems, you know, and it's over and over about their big problems, and I'm like, well, it's kind of consumed you, you know, kind of in a way, and they can't. One small thing kind of demolishes, you know, everything in their life. But kind of having the ability to not go there, or just be aware that maybe I'm just creating something that really doesn't need this much attention, is super important. Yeah.
If you had to describe your relationship with yourself in one word, what would it be?
Demanding.
Nice. What is the fear or insecurity you've struggled with throughout your life?
I think fear is like usually is around like unresolved like potential, like missing out on something you could do, leaving something on the table, whether it's work, family, experience, life, travel, emotion. Yeah.
Okay. What are people surprised to learn about you?
I'm a pretty nice guy. Yeah, I think.
Do they think you're arrogant, do you think?
It's not arrogant.
Or what is the usual?
I guess, you know, when people, you know, when people see you like in a modern time, it's kind of within like a, you know, 2-inch by 2-inch box where they're kind of scrolling through, and, you know, maybe, oh, this guy has style, or this is that, or this, but like, and or it looks super accomplished, or you know, or it looks cooler than it is, you know. And when I meet people, they're just quite surprised that I'm super nice, and they kind of get what they see. And it's something I'm most kind of proud of, is when someone says, oh, I was talking to this person, they said you're the nicest guy. And I think that's like the best compliment I can get, you know? Yeah.
How's your relationship with money? I
think it's weird from a business like standpoint. You look at money as just like a number, like a recording artist will have a certain amount of sales, and money kind of tells them how they did on the next album, you know? And I guess my relationship with money now is it shows me if I've made right decisions, because you know, it's not all about, you know, making great clothes, it's about making great business decisions as well. So I guess when I think about money, I just kind of think about progress and numbers. I don't really chase dollars. I chase intelligent decisions. Yeah.
What is an emotion you feel very often?
I think gratitude.
Okay. What does success mean to you?
I think success has kind of, like, at least the definition of success, it's pretty, you know, most people look at someone successful as this guy has made a lot of money, right? Or built something great, or has some sort of something. I think success is attaining happiness and giving happiness at the same time. You know, if you've done a good job, people around you are happy and you're happy inside. But you know, everything is to waste if you're a miserable person. You know.
It's a good answer. Favorite cartoon character?
Oh wow, that's a great question. It's like so many. Wow. I always liked He-Man for some reason.
You know, that was my favorite.
Was it really?
I swear nobody knows this probably.
Yeah, I
have the pop-up figure one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the power kind of moment. Yeah, I always liked that. And his the tiger, he had a Cringer. What's the name of the?
I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
What was your dream job as a kid, though?
I think it was doing something that people can see. You know, like when I was a teenager, I loved art, and I did tons of graffiti, to the point where like I would get in trouble for it, and they would send me to a counselor, and you know, the counselor kind of said something to me that like shifted my personality. She's like, "Oh, you're not a troublemaker. You just want to see something you create displayed for other people." And it really stuck with me, and it actually turned out to be what I do for a living. So, yeah.
How does it make you feel if you're walking in a mall or the street and you see somebody wearing your clothes?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's still exciting to me. Like, you don't want to be the guy being like, I made that shoe. You never want to be that guy. But you kind of like want to ask, like, what made you buy that shoe with all the shoes that are like on this street? You know, you're curious about, you know, about that process. You know, I think that comes down to having garage mentality again, right? Like, if you lose that thing that gets you excited to see somebody on the street wearing your clothes, then it's kind of like a piece of the magic is missing. You know?
I believe that.
Yeah, and I never really want to get to that point.
Okay, this is one of my favorite questions usually, and it's, if you could teach one lesson to every child in the world, just one lesson, what would you teach them?
Persistence.
Persistence.
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's the key to almost everything they want out of life, you know? I think persistence gives you knowledge, experience, makes you stronger, can be applied through everything. Are you persistent with your work? It'll be successful. Are you persistent with your marriage? It'll be successful. Are you persistent with your friendships? They'll last a lifetime. I think there's something to kind of walking straight and not being pushed, you know, down or being pushed down and walking straight again.
Mm.
It's kind of the key to almost everything you might want.
Yeah, I agree with that. My formula is more similar. It's, I think, if you're really good at something or becoming good, it's your talent. And you multiply that just by consistency and time,
Sure.
it's equal to success.
Sure.
In any scenario.
Yeah.
Baking pizza, you have a talent for
Absolutely.
it. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just be disciplined.
Sure.
It's so underrated, the word discipline and consistency, by the way.
Absolutely.
And you multiply that in months, people are talking about your pizza.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And I think there's something also to be said about finding your talent and being, you know, aware of what that is, comes through trial and comes through doing things constantly.
Absolutely.
You know, it might not be clear to a lot of people early on, but as long as you're not standing still, you're trying things, like it will reveal itself. You just have to be aware enough to see that, wait, maybe this is something I should be doing.
It's funny because we have some very similar thoughts. I told you in Boston, I did this talk with the Harvard Business School students. So they're like, what is a piece of advice? I'm like, I'm going to give you advice, sure.
Yeah, right.
And they go, yeah, what's a piece of advice you can give us? So I thought, because I said, advice is tricky. It's not applicable to everybody. So I need to zoom out and think what's applicable to most people and most human beings.
Right.
Thought, and I'm like, try. That's how you know. If you don't try, the answer is always no. If you try, it might be yes.
Yes.
And I really like that. It's kind of what you said. I was an engineer. I did 12 years of corporate.
Yeah.
I know what I don't like now.
Yeah.
You know, but now I
Absolutely.
found ABtalks and I found, you know, so.
Yeah, and you're pretty good at it.
You find something that clicks on a lot of fronts.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's important. Sometimes you find things that you like the job, but you
Yeah.
don't like the boss or you don't like the corporate way about it.
Sure.
Didn't click everywhere.
Yeah,
Until you find one that tuck, 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 tuck.
Exactly.
That's the one.
exactly.
Yeah. A piece of advice you've never forgotten.
Piece of advice that I've never forgotten. I mean, there's so many. I'm trying to think of like what my favorite one would be. I don't know. I think it's along the lines of kind of what you said as well. Like, you miss all the shots you don't take. You know. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah. If you want to, you know, if you want to make sure nothing happens, do nothing. You know? But I mean, if you think about it, like in the context of like how life is, like the real variable for anyone is time. You know. And the longer you don't do anything, you know, the less time you have to do something. So I always tell designers, like, whether it's good or whether it's bad, just do it. Just do, you know? Don't be in a state where you're constantly thinking of, you know, should I make this shirt? Should I record this song? You're gonna do it, and it's probably not gonna be good. But the next one will be a little bit better. And it probably still won't be good, but the next one will be like a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. What used to make you happy but doesn't anymore?
That's a great question. You have some good ones. The red cards are the one that
These are, because I have
the
too many in my head.
The red ones are.
These are all questions I just find everywhere,
Yeah.
even from people, even research, even from my head.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have just so many in my brain before
Yeah.
an interview, and I'm like, I really don't want to miss things. So I put some notes.
Yeah. I think what used to make me happy, but doesn't anymore, I think, is adulation. I'm not as comfortable as I was for someone to tell me how great I've done at something, because, you know, in a lot of ways it's actually not true, because there's so many people involved in what I'm doing, that it's not all mine anymore. The win isn't really mine. It kind of has my name on it, and people will look at me because I'm kind of the face of it. But it's like the product of so many people's efforts, so many people's belief, you know, so many people's talents. And at the end of the day, you have, you know, your last name there. They're like, amazing job. And in some ways, it's not as gratifying because you're like, well, it wasn't me, but thank you. You know, maybe it's a partly me, you know. It was just me, you know, 12 years ago, like completely, you know, in a single room, but it's not anymore. And it's people who care just as much as I do and even more. So I guess that one doesn't feel the same.
It's so true. You know, there is this African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And I truly believe it takes a village not to only raise a child, but to build a really strong name or a strong brand or a strong business. You need a village. Yeah. And a lot of people are not recognized because they're in the shadows.
Yes, of course.
You know, but some people like to be in the shadows.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Sure.
But I agree with you. It's the moment like these when we're just the face.
Yeah.
You have to give credit where it's also due.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? I think that's so true. And, you know, the gift is really finding those people.
Oof,
yeah.
Don't even start there. I have one here.
Yeah.
I have her.
There you go.
All right. This is a tricky one.
Yeah.
Would you rather lose all your memories or would you rather have lost the ability to make new ones? So it stops here today.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I think I would like to keep all my memories, you know, because so far they're pretty positive, you know, and like I wouldn't really trade, you know, what I've gone through and who I've met. Quite fortunate. Yeah.
Okay. This I think you'd like. Dinner table with any 3 people, dead or alive, and you have dinner with them.
Yeah.
Who are the 3 guests?
That's a pretty great question. I think one from like a musical standpoint, you know, losing Quincy Jones recently, you know, made me kind of look back at all the brilliant, amazing creative accomplishments he's had, and talking about making so many things and having them all be really good. I think that's one of them.
I tried to get him on the show, but he was not well.
Yeah, that would have been a great one.
Big time.
Yeah. And I think, you know, people reference Steve Jobs a lot. And I think that's talking about someone who can see things that don't exist on such a scale that they change, you know, humanity. And that is, you know, just like super rare, unbelievably rare. And I think the last one, he's still alive, is my dad. Every time I get to have dinner with him, it's a great day for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
When was the last time you did?
Yesterday.
Nice. What are you afraid of?
I guess the concept of failure. Yeah. Yeah. It could really be from, you know, personal failure, family failure, business failure. I think you know, I'm really conscious of wanting to do kind of well in a way that's harmonious. Yeah, I like that word, harmony.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
What does love mean to you?
Love means giving. It means wanting more for someone else than you want for yourself. Yeah.
And how long you been married?
14 years. Yeah.
In your opinion and your experience, and also the experience of experiencing other friends and going through marriage and whatnot, what do you think is so crucial for a healthy, happy marriage?
It's a really great question. I think conversation is important. I think talking is important. I think that silence creates space, you know, and I think it's unhealthy to have too much space in a marriage or any kind of relationship or partnership. I think, you know, people don't need to be right, but they want to be understood and they want to be heard, you know? So for us, I think we've been like quite fortunate. And I think there is listening and there is care there. I think that's really important.
What is the most hurtful thing someone has told you?
I don't know if it was the most hurtful, but I think there was something that I like remembered really well. When I was like working in Los Angeles early on and trying to like, you know, design things, and I was, you know, working with stylists and, you know, and I think one of the stylists, you know, sometimes when you're a small brand, sometimes stylists can really help you, and sometimes they can they take advantage of you also. And I remember, you know, one of the stylists, she said something to me, I still remember her name too. She's, I was saying, well, I designed this and that for, you know, something, and she was like, you didn't design anything, you do stuff to things. Like, and it like hurt so much, you know, and I was like, do stuff to things, you know? And it kind of like, you know, for me, the process is so beautiful and it's so rare and, you know, and I always kind of remembered that. But it's pretty kind of amazing too, you know, because I think those things also helped much more than they've hurt.
If you use it in that way.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people, like I don't really believe in like negativity should fuel you, you know? But I do believe you should carry a chip on your shoulder, you know? I do think you should feel like you have something to prove, whether it's to yourself, you know, to the world, you know? I don't especially like now, like to be a creative in this generation, you have so many eyes on you and so many people like watching. And the second you try something, it's really easy to get instant feedback and instant criticism, right? And it's scary. It's really scary for people to do things because of what people will say, right? And you either become what you're going to become in spite of what people say, or you become what you're going to become because, you know?
Big difference.
Big difference. And I was really kind of clear with myself that I knew where I was going, and I still know where I'm going. And you could have so much commentary and you know, be human and look for kind of the negative comments and in what you're doing, but if you know where you're going, you know.
Yeah. What is the most emotionally difficult thing you had to go through?
I guess in some way it's kind of going back to that, like understanding criticism, or understanding you're not always going to, people are not always going to like what you do, what you create, you know? Going back to that kid who was doing graffiti on the wall, not everybody's going to walk by and clap, you know? And that's one of the things about being an artist. You have to learn to be okay with that and go forward kind of in spite of it. And you know, now especially, you know, the brand we've built and the profile we have, you know, is pretty global, you know, and you're not kind of doing something for a few people to see. You're doing it on the highest possible platform for the best in the world to see.
But if we scan your life, like all the way till like you're 6, was there any period that it was difficult on Mike? Like you had to endure and you had to persevere?
Yeah. Yeah, like all of it. I really can't say, like, you know, I like things easy, you know. I can't say, you know, I've taken like an easy route at anything, you know. Not really. In law school, in college, like, you know, I was the worst student in the class. I graduated, I was top 3 in the class because I liked the difficulty of doing that. It was torture. It was really hard, you know, but I think I gravitate towards the difficult stuff in many ways.
I think I'm a bit similar. Like I was talking to, I don't know who was asking me, but they were asking me if I'm a vulnerable guy.
Yeah.
And I said I preach vulnerability, but it's not so easy to apply it on myself.
Sure.
So my show preaches it.
Of course.
We talk about mental health, we talk about suicide, we talk about rape, we talk about adversity, we talk about everything.
Yeah.
And I celebrate it because I do think they're very courageous people.
Of course.
But it's like a doctor telling you what to do, but then he goes smokes a cigarette.
Right.
And you're like, hey, so
yeah.
With me, I don't know. It's something I need to work on more, to be vulnerable. Because
right.
if I go with what you said, we've been through obviously traumatizing moments, even if it's a lowercase t,
yeah.
not an uppercase. But I don't remember a lot of it, if they're even there, and I'm sure I do some, but I need to sit down properly and think about it. But also neglecting it, is it a good thing, or is it still under the rug and I need to take care of it, you know?
Sure.
It's interesting.
It is.
I don't have the answer.
What does happiness mean to you?
Peace of mind. I've thought of this one. I don't think it's normal just to be like all the time. It's weird. I think peace of mind is the best thing. Like, imagine I tell you now, Mike, or anybody in this room, I tell you, listen, I'm going to give you $100 million, but with the condition that you will not live another day with peace of mind. If you're really, really true, you're like, fuck that. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You know, no matter how desperate, you ask somebody who really is dying for money, if they actually thought about the question properly, they will reject it. Because that's a very expensive price.
Sure.
Imagine putting your head every night and you don't have peace of mind. You can't sleep, you're anxious, you're paranoid.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the point of the money then?
Absolutely.
So the happiness, I do think, if you want to be happy, you should have peace of mind in your marriage, within your family, at your work, as much as possible. We don't have it all the time. Sure. The majority of the time, we're very blessed.
It's a great answer.
So yeah, the question was, are you a vulnerable person? Do you think you are?
I think so, yeah.
Really? Okay. Do you think it's easy to talk about everything for you openly, or like, I'm sure in no camera probably more?
Yeah.
But generally as a person, if your best friend talked to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I guess it falls within the context of also kind of being self-aware of who you are, and I guess being okay with that. I think it's important to be vulnerable in contexts of, you know, friendship and trust, because that's how you build, you know. Everyone is so interested in showing their best self, you know. This context of everything is always great, you know, but in reality, it's very few people, you know. Nobody has everything great all the time. So I think that's when friends or family, you know, that's really the contribution, is that trust to be vulnerable.
Did you lose people? Like, did people around you that were dear to you pass away?
A few here and there, but I think, you know, if you've left nothing on the table in relationships, you know, if you've kind of gone through certain things without regrets, you know.
Did you lose anybody close?
Yeah, I mean, throughout my life, I've lost a few people who've been somewhat close to me, but our experiences together were great, and the time spent was spent well. You know, I've been kind of fortunate enough where I haven't lost anybody immediate to me. You know, in the past few years, you know, maybe when I was younger. Yeah.
What does Shireen mean to you?
I think, you know, when you want to talk about like a harmony, I think sometimes there's instruments that sound very different, but when they play the same tune, it works together. And I think in many ways, she's quite different than me, but we try to play the same song, so it works out quite well, you know. And each one is kind of dependent on the other, you know, in a certain way to make things sound beautiful. Yeah.
And your kids, what do they mean to you?
My kids are the best self-reflection you can get on how you're doing in life. I think you can see yourself in them. You can also kind of see what you're creating in a way and what you're contributing to. They're a great sense of pride, adventure, curiosity. Yeah, they're like a great reason to kind of continue. You know.
You'd have more kids?
Would I? No, we got a Labradoodle, and that's like the last thing. The dog was like the last one, and you know.
Yeah, that's a question we need to ask Shireen. They do the harder work, not us.
No, I think we're done. I'm pretty sure.
Your dad. If you could go back in time when your dad was young, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that everything's going to work out. Yeah.
You think he needed to hear that?
I think so. I think he, you know, was an immigrant to the U.S. and he was not affluent. And he did a lot of jobs and he worked really hard. And, you know, these are kind of the stories he would share, is kind of like his adventures working and going through a lot of things. And I guess, you know, just as kind of I'm on my journey and in my head I reinforce myself like it's going to be good, you know, and convincing everybody it's going to be good. I guess the best contribution you can kind of give to someone is just a little push along the way and say it's going to work out. You know?
There's a popular myth and a lot of research on this, but it's just an interesting one, that when we die, our brains stay alive for 7 minutes on average. So if you think that when you're gone, that your brain is playing back all the great memories of Mike's life, what do you think will be some of them?
I think most of them would probably revolve around family, friends, you know, my kids, my wife. I guess kind of going full circle to, you know, like the original question of, you know, who am I, and, you know, how I define myself. I guess those relationships are the ones that I hold probably closest to my identity, and they're the same ones that I hold closest to my pride. Yeah.
Mike in one word. Or Michael.
Michael, yeah. Just human.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.